Hi, I'm Ashley from Sunny Made, and today we are going to trim up a square within a square. Hello friends, welcome back. How are you doing? Are you having some fun quilting projects? I would love to see them. Find me over on Instagram at Ashley_SunnyMade. I will make sure and put a link down in the description box so you can go find me. I want to see what you're working on. Tag me, okay? I would love to see it. Okay, this is a quilt block I'm working on. I'm going to be releasing this pattern quite soon. And as I was working on it, I thought about a few topics that I wanted to go over. Today we are talking about how to trim that square within a square so that square, it can also be called a diamond within a square if you want to call it that. So it goes by two different names in the quilting community. But we want to make sure that that diamond in the middle of the square is perfectly lined up so that it is ready to go when we're putting it in with the rest of our pieces in our quilt block. I'm going to actually show you a couple of ways of doing it. First, I'm going to show you how to use a square that is the exact size of what we want our unfinished square within a square to be. I'm going to show you how to use a larger square because honestly, we don't always have the exact tool that we need. So we need to be able to work around with the stuff that we do have. So a bigger square, and then I'm going to show you how to do it with a ruler. One that is smaller, that doesn't quite go all the way across because, like I said, we don't always have the perfect tool, and I'm very aware of that and how much things cost. So I want to give you a couple examples so you know how to best trim up your square within a square with the tools you have. So gather your rulers, gather a square within a square if you have to, if you have one, and also make sure that you have a nice sharp rotary cutter. I think this is a really important thing to think about. In order to trim these up, you want your rotary cutter to be nice and sharp. If it starts and it's fraying along the edge, that is a very big red flag that says you need to change your rotary cutter. If it's your rotary cutter blade, I guess. If you're cutting and it's missing pieces as you cut, that means there's chips in your rotary cutter blade and you need to replace your rotary cutter. So make sure, let's start off here. First basic tip, make sure you have a really sharp blade and you are ready to go. Okay, here we have your square within a square or your diamond within a square, however you want to call it. We are done sewing it. It is time to be trimmed down. First, I'm going to show you how to do it with a square and specifically with the size that I want my square within a square to be. So if I put this on here, you can see that my square within a square is bigger than my ruler. I want my finished size, my unfinished size of my square within a square to be 6.5 by 6.5. How is it best to do that? First, I want to line up my points, this point and this point. Half of 6.5 is 3.25, and I'm going to first line that up with the 3.25 line. That's my first step. If I had sewn this perfectly, my points here on the sides should be 3.5 as well. And I can actually adjust this so that the majority of my points line up at 3¼ Did I say 3½ before? I'm sorry. I don't mean to mess you up. My half of my 6½ is 3¼ I want to line up this point, this point, this point, and this point with 3¼ And as I do that, that's going to put my square or diamond shape in the middle, right in the middle of my block. And then all I have to do is trim two sides. I like to do two at a time because then I'm not moving my fabric a whole bunch. I flip it around. I know now that I need this at 6½, so I line up my bottom and my left edges. That's if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, you'll be lining it up the other way so you can hold it down with your non-dominant hand. But I'm going to line up my left edge and my bottom edge, and if you look, those should all still fall at the 3¼ So I'm going to hit this side and this side, and there you have your 6½ square within a square. Okay, I have the next one here. We are going to be trimming it to 6½ by 6½ inches. And I'm going to start with a square that is bigger than what I need to trim it at. So just like the last one, we're going to figure out where these points line up, where we want them to line up on our square. So half of 6½ is 3¼ So I'm going to start by lining up that 3¼ line top to bottom here. And then I want to check my left to right. Obviously I didn't sew it very well, so I'm just going to kind of finagle it so it's fairly in the middle. Okay, 3¼ this way, 3¼ this way. I am then just going to cut the side and top, turn it around, and now that I'm at this point, I can line up my edges, 6½ inches by 6½ inches. Now I'm going to show you a little trick that you can do if you're doing a whole bunch of these. This quilt I'm making here has me making 12 of these. Sometimes there's a lot more that we have to make. And so what I would actually do, and I showed this on my trimming half square triangles, is I'm going to actually put some washi tape right at that 3¼ line. And I'm going to put it so I can still see the 3¼ line, so it's just going to be off to the side. I'm going to put it going vertical and then horizontal. Whoops. If I can get it to stay down, both at that 3¼ line. Now that's my middle line. It's easy to line up the 6½ that I want it to be at the end, but lining up that center, so if I pull my next one over, I can right off the bat go, oh look, there's my 3¼ line. Here's my 3¼ line going this way. I already have those lines on there and marked, and it makes it a lot quicker. I already filmed this portion of the video, but I didn't like the way that I explained it, so I'm coming back and explaining it to you again. But I already have this square within a square trimmed, so I'm just going to show you how I would have done it. Okay, so we have our ruler. It is not the full width of this quilt block, and sometimes this is all we have. We just need to be able to take what we have and use it and make it work. So first I'm going to say, once again, we are lining up this center seam at 3¼ Okay, this is our most important line, and it honestly doesn't matter the bottom or this one here, we are just going to work with one side at a time. We're going to measure it all from that middle line of 3¼ inches. And when we're done, we're going to end up with a 6½ inch square. So first I'm taking this and I'm lining it up at 3¼ and I'm going to trim that first side. And look, apparently I didn't trim it very well the last time. Okay, so now we have 2 points on our quilt block. First, we want to make sure that we're lining up this bottom edge with a line on the ruler. This is the one we just trimmed. We're going to line it up. Next, we want to line up those points, if it's sewn correctly, at 3¼ So now we're having this is 3¼ this way, and it should be 3¼ this way. So once I get those two lined up, I'm going to take my rotary cutter and trim it. Just a tad, it looks like. Now we have trimmed this side, the left side, and the bottom side. At this point, what we want to do is, it should be 6½ inches across, which is where we want to trim it. So again, we are going to line up this bottom edge that we just trimmed on a line on our ruler. We're going to line up these points at 3¼ because if we have 3¼ inches on this side when we trim it and 3¼ inches on this side when we trim it, and we make sure we line it up with the bottom of this fabric, we're going to have it 6½ inches. So there's just that little bit that we're trimming off, and this is our last side. Again, line up that bottom or the top, it doesn't matter at this point. We have 1, 2, 3 trimmed sides. We are then going to line it up with the points. That looks good. And do any trimming. I don't need to do any trimming on this last side. So now if I take it and I put it on the lines on my cutting mat, you can see it's 6½ by 6½. And so we have a 6½ inch square from a ruler that is slightly smaller than that 6½ inches. Okay, we are all done with our square within a square. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them down in the comment section below. I hope I was able to give you a better way of trimming so that it makes sense in your mind and you're able to get your diamonds nice and straight in the middle of your square. Other than that, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps me out and gets my videos to other quilters, and I hope you have a great week. Happy sewing!